Man, you never know what you're going to get. It's always a treat when we have Dave Bartoo, CFB Matrix Analytical. Dave, thank you for coming back on the show.
Absolutely, man. I'm always waiting for the Zoom link to tap in, and love your fan base. I get a lot of feedback from them, so let's see where this show takes us. I'm ready to roll.
Yeah, and obviously you're a very busy guy. You got your hands in a lot of the college football world when it comes to staffing, and of course your unique analytics that quite frankly, I don't know anybody that does it quite like you, and I've tried to learn under you. Specifically, your scoring efficiencies, I think is just genius. But there's a lot of different ways we could go. But what I asked you to come on about, we got the playoff rankings coming out very soon, and we've had you all here before to discuss that because you have cracked the code. All the bullshit they say of eye test and game control and yada yada yada. Can you break it down for any of the new listeners that we have of how you've kind of cracked the code, so to speak, on this playoff rankings?
Sure. Well, it started. I guess this might be one of the nerdier things I can say, but it started with us wanting to crack the code, right? We wanted to, because here is what we thought from day one. Because in July of was it 2013? I can't remember. Bill Hancock came out and he said, we're going to have a playoff. And he gave us the ranking rules. See, the committee is not autonomous. They don't get to do what they want. They use the rules of ranking teams that are given to them, and they follow the rules, right? So even if you and I are on the committee, okay. So the motivation was, okay, we have 13 people that have 48 hours to decide who are the 25 best teams amongst 134 teams, right? And so it's like a corporate boardroom. Corporate boardrooms have rules. Once boxes are checked, the answer is yes or the answer is no. So our assumption was from the beginning that, okay, we have these rules given to us by Hancock. We have a group of 13 people that will change but has to follow these rules, and they only have 48 hours to get it done. Now, you figure, okay, they're going to sleep for 20 of those, so they really only have 24 hours to decide who are the 25 best teams in college football. So one of our first things was the eye test is bullshit. There is no time to eye test 30 teams evenly, so we don't believe it. We think that is just a narrative they use to try to explain things. So we took the rules and we started applying the rules to the rankings as they were coming out. And what we found is there was essentially a math formula based on the rules where we could project 1 through 25 better than anybody else. And for the last 10 years, we have tried to find somebody who could even do it year over year. Every once in a while, someone gets lucky and will project a good 1 through 12, but they're not applying the same thing every week. It's subjective. It's not subjective like our stuff. And we knew we really hit on it the first year, right at the end of the regular season. We'd been doing good, and 1 through 4 came out exactly right on the final regular season. And then the next year, 1 through 4. And so for the last 10 years, we have nailed 1 through 4 in order correctly using the same model. Now, it's not perfect. If it was perfect, we'd really piss some people off. But the top 12 is usually very, very good. So when I'm talking about how we're ranking teams, it's not how I feel. It's not my eye test. I'm not a talking head. I am literally just interpreting the numbers that the committee has used every year for the last 10 years. People want to say, oh, well, if the brand's big enough, they'll bump them. They haven't done it. They've never done it at any point. Not 1 through 4, not 1 through 10, not 1 through 15. They don't do that, right? It's all just a simple formula because these are all people that are extremely busy. They don't have time for bullshit, and they need to be able to get these rankings out in time for them to be able to fabricate a show for it. So it has to have something like this associated with it. And we think we've done a pretty good job of figuring out what they're going to do way before they do it.
But Dave, have you not heard? They've all been given iPads with cut-ups of the games in 45 minutes so that they can evaluate. So that's all bullshit too.
Oh, yeah. I don't. Well, let's start with the people on the committee, right? How many people are qualified for X's and O's? If I was on the committee, I would say I don't do the eye test. I am not good enough to watch film of 30 teams and go, oh, they're better this week. What the hell? Right? I mean, if it's Barry Alvarez, right? If Barry Alvarez goes, Dave, I think Penn State's offense was pretty good that week. Okay, Barry, that's cool. Right? I mean, and then even if I knew what I was doing, how am I doing 2 hours per team to really get a good feel for their X's and O's? 30 teams, that's 60 hours. They have 24 to make their decision. It doesn't exist. It's not real. In my opinion, it's absolutely not real. And they just go with this to make it easy for them.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of not real, and I've already seen some blowback. People aren't buying it. According to again, this is not Dave Bartoo being subjective here. He hates the SEC, but there's no SEC teams currently heading into Week 10 that would be ranked in the top 4. Is that correct?
No, there's not. Top 4 right now by our numbers, and we got the machine going early. Okay, we got Oregon, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Miami. That's 1 through 4. Right now, we know that doesn't matter because only your 1 through 4 are going to be your conference champs, right? But it doesn't hurt to be there. Number 5 is where we start with the SEC. 5, 6, 8, 10, and Alabama at 15.
You got a big smile on your face when you say Alabama 15. Are you tired of seeing them dominate this damn thing?
Right. I only say that just because the shock value. I mean, it doesn't surprise me. They have 2 losses. Right. They've got 2 losses. And now here's a big difference for the crowd that says the regular season doesn't matter. If they don't lose to Vanderbilt, I ran the numbers. If they don't lose to Vanderbilt, they're number 2.
Wow.
They lose to Vanderbilt, they're at 15. And it's not because they lost to Vanderbilt. They lost to Team X. Right? It could be anybody, right? But they lost to Team X for their second loss. And that second loss knocked them down to 15. Now, it could be worse. Since we're on Alabama, it could be worse. If that Vanderbilt loss, which is a good loss, okay, it's an above 500 team. If Vanderbilt right now is 5-3, if they finish 1-3 and finish at 6-6 or 5-7, that loss becomes a bad loss. They are absolutely not getting in on that. That is like a 3rd loss. So yes, if you're an Alabama fan, you are rooting for them to win out. Everybody above you, you have to have something happen to bounce them, right? You have to have losses above you. Don't assume at 10-2 you are getting in, because in the last 10 years, 15 teams with 10 wins haven't made the top 12. Power 4 teams, 10 wins, basically 1.5 a year don't make it. So don't think you're in. Like Missouri's out. Missouri can go 10-2, they're out. Their quality wins aren't there. Their margin of victory isn't there. Their margin of loss is huge. They can go 10-2. They ain't making it. So with Alabama, that loss to Team X, it happens to be Vanderbilt. If Vanderbilt goes to sub 500, I will say right now, they are not going to make it in based on where everybody is right now. They would need unbelievable amounts of losses and help to get there.
Mm-hmm. But, to what you're saying there with Missouri, as opposed to other teams. So not all 10-2s are even, right? So like let's say Georgia, who they've lost to Alabama and they've beaten Texas, but now they still got Ole Miss, they got Tennessee. If somehow they got Florida this week, let's say Georgia ends up 10-2. What's the likelihood that they're in the playoff?
Now, I mean, now you're what ifing me. That wasn't part of our deal. You
Okay.
can't what if me to death. You really
What?
can't what if me to death. Because now you got Georgia 10-2. They don't make it there. Alabama has a win over them.
Mm-hmm.
And all things being equal, if Georgia had that second loss right now, they'd be ranked behind Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because they'd have the two losses. Alabama's strength of schedule is 6. Georgia isn't there. Alabama has 5 quality wins to date. Georgia has 2. Alabama has 2 top 25 wins as of today. Georgia has 2. Alabama's game control factor is 19.0. Georgia is at 16.1. They're better across the board, and they beat them. So if Georgia had that second loss, they wouldn't be at 6. They would be at 15. Alabama would be up at 14. So, this is why these regular season games are actually important. I think people were thinking, oh, it's not going to be important in the outcome of 1 through 4. No, it's not. But now it's just shifted. Now 9 through 16, it compresses even more. And so we don't know how important these games are going to be. Hell, look at Texas A&M and Notre Dame. Who thought that was a top 5 matchup? I mean, right now we got Notre Dame at 3, A&M at 5. And if both of those two teams lose, guess who's going to be ranked ahead? Notre Dame, because they have the head-to-head win. So there is a lot of moving pieces left to go, though.
Right. Okay. So let me frame it to you this way. What are the numbers telling you as of today? Is there any indication of how many SEC teams will be in there, or is there just too much football to be played to give a firm answer?
There's a lot of football left, but look, we got A&M and Texas that are going to face each other, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Texas has 1 loss. A&M has 1 loss. If they meet at 11-1 or at 10-1, the loser's at 10-2. That team is very likely going to be in simply because of the quality wins they have and so forth. But a lot of it may depend on who matches up there with that. And then you have Tennessee at 6-1. We have them at number 10, right? And obviously everybody has a long ways to go with these things. But right now, as it is, we have four in there. A&M, Georgia, Texas, and Tennessee. Those are the 4 that are in there. And I do expect that is, I said at the beginning of the season, I think the norm for the SEC, especially if they stay at 8 conference games, is always going to be 4 teams. You'll get 5 in there once in a while. When they go to 9, I think it may change it. I think it may drop it, maybe a team or a half a team a year. But generally, I think you're going to get 4 in there as the norm. And we're tracking for that right now. I think the big thing here, and maybe I pointed this out before on your show, and I don't remember. You do not want to be a 10-2 underdog in your championship game. Okay? If you are ranked 9, 10, 11, or 12, every single team that is 10-2 in the last 10 years that has gone to their Power 4, Power 5 championship game at 10-2, ranked 9th or less, they've all lost, and they have all come out 13th or worse the next week. So you are way better off being a 10-2 sitting at home than a 10-2 underdog in your conference championship game. Not just the SEC, all of them. But because everybody has a loss right now, we are steaming toward an SEC team that may not be in the top 8 that is in the title game, and they get beat, and the very next week they're out, and other teams that didn't play are in. I am looking forward to that shit show.
Yeah. Good luck to the administration and everything dealing with those fans that are going to be in that scenario.
And it's happened 5 times in the last 10 years. That scenario has happened 5 times. So it's not like it's unforeseen. This has happened on average every other year for the last decade. We may see it happen right out of the gate. And oh my God, the fan base will lose their minds if they drop out of the top 12 by losing a conference championship game.
And then could you give me where the highest ranked G5 team is? Because they get in now.
Oh,
So
Boise State right now. Actually, Boise State's at 14.
okay.
Straight up at 14. They're 6-1. Their strength of schedule is 47, which is way better than Indiana's 116. God, get this like shitty schedule, man. Hey, we can only play the games, right? We can only play the cards we're dealt. Indiana has just dealt the easiest cakewalk. The easiest one is North Carolina. And me making the argument that North Carolina is shittier than Florida State this year, that's a separate show. But I could do it effectively. But Boise is 6-1. Their only loss is on the road. Close game to number 1 Oregon. They're 47th in strength of schedule. They have 3 quality wins, meaning they have 3 wins over FBS teams that are currently above 500, not at or above 500. So that can change. They have 1 top 25 win, which will drop off because UNLV lost. So that'll drop off next week. And Boise State's game control is right in there with Penn State, Oregon, and Alabama. So right now, if Boise wins out, they're the team.
Mm-hmm. But how about any like a Big 12 type-ish team? Yeah, basically what I'm trying to get at is I think some fans think, hey, we're in the top 12, we're safe. But that's not necessarily the case. You really got to be top 10, I would think, because of the G5, because of perhaps an upset in an ACC or a Big 12 championship to where a team outside the top 12 wins and they're guaranteed a spot. So what's your thoughts on that?
Number 1, you got to go top 11, right? Because number 12 is going to be that G16, right? It's always going to be that G16. Now, I know every once in a while you get like Cincinnati at 4 and some kind of crap like that, but those are rare. Those are anomalies, okay? I think you have to be looking at it that you are top 11, all right? But what did we just talk about? Even 10-2 in the last 10 years, 10-2, Power 4, you have been outside looking in 7 times. Okay, so that doesn't guarantee it. Like you said, you got BYU and Iowa State and Kansas State, 8-0, 7-0, and 7-1. Okay, if for some reason BYU and Iowa State go to that championship game, both at 12-0, they're both probably getting in. So an SEC team at 11, you were hoping for something that just didn't happen. The only thing I know is when you get to 11 wins as a Power 4 team, you're in, right? 11-2, 11-1, plus obviously undefeated, you are in. I do not feel that at 10-2, number 12, number 11, you should ever feel that you are safe. I think you're just riding a really thin edge there, but it's no different than 4, 5, and 6, 3, 4, 5, and 6 over the last decade, right? You're riding a thin edge. It's just, it's just been moved down a few notches.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then of those teams that you have in the SEC that are top 15, A&M, Georgia, Texas, Tennessee, Alabama, are those the only ones that can make it? Or is it conceivable, even if it's 1% shot, that LSU and Ole Miss may have to win out, may even have to win the SEC championship game, but could they conceivably get in?
Sure, they could conceivably get in. Right? We're not betting on an LSU with the number 40 offense and the number 66 defense to make that run, are we? Right?
No.
Like my doctor says, yeah, you can die from a cold. Probably not. Right? So teams can make runs, right? LSU is probably somewhere between 16 and 25. Ole Miss is right there. Ole Miss has the top 10 defense. Ole Miss has the top 20 offense. They've lost 2 games by 3 points apiece. They could win out to 10-2. But that would require them beating Georgia, who's now 10-2. Oh, dude, the shit show's coming in the SEC, and it's going to be glorious.
Yeah. And then you've always highlighted teams that are elite in scoring offense or scoring defense. Those are really the only teams that can win the national championship. Who is...
Yeah. In the last... let me pull up my rankings right now. So just to let everybody know, in the last 25 years, using my scoring efficiency factor. Okay, it's something I've been doing for 18 years now. I back tested it all the way to the turn of the century. For the last 25 years, when the regular season is done, the national champion for 25 straight years has had at least a top 3 scoring efficiency offense and or a top 3 scoring efficiency defense. Okay. Every single year. Last year, Michigan, number 2 defense, number 3 offense. I mean, it is, you have to be elite to win a national title. It's not just the elite recruiting, it's elite performance. So through 9 weeks, the Power 4 teams that are top 3 in offense, Miami, Indiana, Ohio State. Okay. Ohio State has the talent. Nobody else does in that group. And then over on the defensive side, we have Ole Miss, Texas, and Tennessee. 1, 2, 3. So Notre Dame's 4, Penn State's 7, Oregon's 8, Alabama's 9. But, so these numbers can move. But
right.
If you're not top 3 for 24 consecutive national titles, the national champ is elite at least something. The best one was probably 2011 Alabama. They were number 1 in offense. They were number 1 in defense. And they were the 133rd slowest offense pace of play. Only Army was slower. They were walking death. It was absolutely gorgeous football in 2000.
All right, a final thing, Dave, really appreciate your time, but you were well ahead of this when everybody and their mother said the SEC's got to go to 9-game conference. You said, well, hell, why? I mean, they stay at 8, they win all these championships, and the way I hear it now, they're probably going to stay at 8. Do you take
really?
Do you
Is that
take
what you're
full
hearing?
credit? Do you take full credit, or you take all the credit? How's that work?
Why shouldn't I take full credit for that? Who in the hell else nationally was saying they should stay at 8? Everybody was streaming for 9, and no way. You know something? And it makes for better games, honestly. Right? Because what do fans love? At least this is my opinion in all the polls I've done. Fans love big brands clashing heads, right? They love the big matchup. So they love the big brands. They love the big brands more when they're top 25 versus top 25. They really love it when it's top 10 versus top 10, right? We want to see number 1 versus number 4 and 6 versus 7. And who wants to see a bunch of, it's number 22 LSU versus, unranked Ole Miss in November? I mean, those are great brands and games to watch, but we want to see teams that haven't lost, that are risking everything. And the more conference games you play, you're adding losses. You are reducing the likelihood that you have top 10 teams. You have half the top 20 recruiters. You have more than half the talent in the entire country. Why go to 9? You've already proven you win plenty. And I think if you go to 9, you are risking taking maybe one team, a half a team out of the playoff picture every year. If I'm Greg, I'm greedy. I want to give a shot. I want a shot to have a Final Four SEC, right? That's what I want. And I think if they stay at 8, if the SEC stays at 8, sometime in the next 10 years, we are going to have 2 semifinal games, and it's going to be all SEC, and people are going to be gloriously pissed off for it, and I'm here for that.
All right, Dave, before you go, can you tell my audience, how can they follow you? How can they find your work?
Well, you can get a hold of me on Twitter. The DMs are always open at CFB Matrix. I do have my text line open all the time, too. ADs use it. Coaches use it. Support staff use it. Fans, look, I'm a college football junkie. If you're nice, you send me a text at 971-217-8419. I will do what I can to get back to you and try to be that man of the people you want.
All right. Thank you so much. We always appreciate the unique insight and the unfiltered look at all these wild numbers that you come up with.
Appreciate it. Glad to be on.